The rain in New Tokyo didn't fall anymore. It shimmered, falling in vertical streaks of violet light, coded weather scripted by orbital servers. The real sky had been gone for years, overwritten by a global overlay called Oasis. But under the skyline, in the ruined shadows the Oasis couldn't reach, a woman stood barefoot in a pool of real water and remembered dying. Kira Voss blinked slowly, the synthetic lens in her right eye rebooting. A thin vertical scam line glowed across her vision, searching for reality, confirming what her bones already knew. 2049. She was back. Her black hair was slicked to her face, streaked with blood, half hers, half his. The alley behind Sector 19's Transcore hub still smelled like rust and ozone, the wet hum of neon flickering in and out of sync above her. Her breath steamed in the cold, but her chest wasn't moving. She was already dead. Kira looked down. Her own body lay at her feet, throat slit, spine severed, pulse silenced. There was no mistake. This was the night it happened. Her voice was raw when she spoke. Protocol override, karma loop, initiate recall. No one answered. Not from the sky, not from the implants buried in her neck, not from the network she'd burned 20 years building. Just silence. Until the pulse came. A low, frequency-deep rumble pushed through the puddles like a subsonic scream. The metal fire escape beside her shuddered. Then the alley cracked open. A vertical slit in the air peeled downward, a glowing tier of impossible geometry. The edges shimmered in unstable frames, too fast to be real, too slow to be light. Kira stepped into it without flinching. The world inverted. She fell, not through space, but through memory, through heat, blood, and bone. She didn't scream. Her body dissolved into data, recompiled, reborn. She hit the floor of a sterile white chamber with a sound like wet concrete. The lights overhead buzzed as the aperture sealed behind her, pixelating out of existence. The walls were smooth, seamless. The air smelled like copper and static. Across from her, standing with hands behind his back, was a man in a dark suit stitched with stars. Eyes like event horizons, voice like machinery pretending to care. "You made it," he said, coldly. Again. Kira rose slowly, every nerve vibrating. "This is breach code. You said I couldn't use it again. You were already dead. Dead women don't follow rules." He turned and gestured at a flat black screen hovering in midair. On it, a looping video played, her own death, over and over. Static bled across the edges. "I warned you. History resists being rewritten. You'll start to fracture." She didn't blink. "I only need one shot." He tilted his head. "And what then? You kill your killer before he ever touched you, before he cut your throat on that alley floor. You rupture his past. What happens to yours? I don't care. You will." She stepped forward, fists clenched. "Send me to 98. The air around the room thickened, like time holding its breath. The man frowned. "There's a price," he said. "Temporal strike travel this deep? You'll lose pieces, memories, identity, anchors." "Good," she whispered. "Let it all burn." The man didn't move, but the room obeyed. The floor split into a spiral of fractal light, folding inward like an origami paradox. The video of her death glitched and froze. Kira frozen mid-scream, neck split open. She stepped into the spiral. Then the world shattered again. She landed hard in darkness. Rain, real rain, pelted her skin, hot and furious. Wind lashed against her ears. She was outside, horizontal, on wet gravel, a station platform. Train brakes screamed in the distance, metal shrieking like tortured lungs. Fluorescent lights flickered above, the hum of analog electricity. Her eyes adjusted. A green sign, Shibuya Station, June 17th, 1998. She laughed, ragged and low. Holy shit, it worked. But the moment didn't last, because she wasn't alone. A man stood at the edge of the platform, too still. Long coat, no umbrella, face obscured. Watching her, not shocked, not afraid. Watching like he knew. She pushed up on trembling arms. Her body felt wrong, loose, not hers. The time jump had scrambled something vital. "Who the hell are you?" she shouted. The man turned, walked away. She tried to run after him, but her legs betrayed her, new muscles not calibrated. She fell. Her hand hit something on the ground, a bag, hers. Prepped, she tore it open. Inside, a handgun wrapped in cloth, analog rounds, clean. A 1990s passport under the name Kira Sato. And something else, a photo. Crisp, unaged, sealed in a plastic sleeve. It was him, her killer. But it wasn't 2049. It was a photo from 1998. The name under it read, Dr. Elias Call, quantum physicist, Project Aeon. She whispered the name like a curse. Call. Footsteps. Behind her. She spun, gun up, breath ragged. No one. Then, "Do not alter fixed death points." A voice crackled in her earpiece. She hadn't activated it. She didn't remember installing it. "You have already died. You are the anomaly. Proceed with terminal caution." She pulled the earpiece free and crushed it beneath her boot. Too late. Lightning cracked the sky. Somewhere far off, a child screamed. Somewhere closer, a world she hadn't yet broken was about to tear. And Kira Voss, rebuilt, reborn, unburied, took her first step into the year her killer still walked free. She would find him. She would end him, even if it ended her again. The rain in Shibuya tasted like iron. Not data-coded like in 2049, not synthetic or sterilized. This was weather with weight, unclean, unfiltered, beautiful in its chaos. Kira Voss moved through the crowd like a ghost that hadn't realized it was dead. Her muscles fought her, still sinking to this time thread. People bumped past her, eyes on pagers, Walkmans, and briefcases. No overlays, no implants, no warning pings. She was invisible here, for now, but so was he. Dr. Elias Call, the man who slit her throat in an alley in 2049 after Project Aeon collapsed under its own gravity. The man whose name haunted classified echo channels for years before vanishing completely. A physicist, a myth, a man who believed time wasn't a line, but a lens, and he had learned to bend it. And now he was walking these streets, 20 years younger, unaware that the woman he murdered had just stepped off a train to kill him back. She slid into a cafe and watched the reflection in the rain-streaked glass. No tail, no surveillance drones. Good. She peeled open the bag again. The analog passport, Japanese yen, burner map, and the pistol. She hadn't built this kit. She didn't even remember packing it. Someone, or something, had helped. Time resists correction, she reminded herself, but memory folds. The bell above the door jingled as a man in a beige raincoat entered. Clean-shaven, glasses fogged, carrying a briefcase he held like it was full of radioactive secrets. He didn't look at her, ordered coffee, sat down. She recognized him immediately. Elias Call, age 36, still human, still killable. She watched him sip his coffee like the world wasn't about to collapse under the weight of his ambition. She could kill him now. Pull the gun, 3 steps, 2 shots center mass. Done. No project, no slaughter, no neck sliced open in 2049. Her hand went to her coat, then stopped, because behind Call, another man walked in. Too clean, too calm, jacket tailored with no dust on the hem, eyes sweeping the room with algorithmic patience. Not local, not from 1998. Kira stiffened. Another traveler. She dropped a coin and bent low to slide the gun further up her sleeve. The man walked past Call like he didn't see him, like he was scanning the air around him, tracking residue, looking for her. Kira slid out the side door just before he turned, heart jackhammering. That wasn't supposed to happen. No one else was supposed to breach this far down the time stream. This was supposed to be her mission, her loop, her vengeance. But the moment she'd crossed into 98, she'd fractured something deeper. She moved fast, back into the alleys, winding toward the address in the corner of the photo sleeve. Kokubunji Research Annex, Level 3. She needed to understand the timeline, find out when Call had begun manipulating time, not just theorizing it, if he'd made contact with them yet, if he'd already breached Aeon.
If so, she wasn't hunting a man, she was hunting a god. Hours passed. By dusk, she stood in front of a rusted gate marked Research Staff Only. The sign was fading, but the biometric lock glowed faintly. Too advanced for 1998. Wrong century tech. She touched the panel. It hummed, scanned, accepted her. Access granted. Clearance Temporal Prime. Her skin went cold. She stepped inside. The halls were quiet, not abandoned, preserved, like something had kept the building paused, waiting for her. Old CRT monitors blinked sleepily. The elevator still worked. The lower levels smelled like coolant and secrets. She found level 3, and behind a reinforced glass wall, a stasis tank hummed quietly. Inside it, a man floated, pale and suspended, wires in his skull, eyes shut. Not Call. Her. It was her body, young, unscarred, undeveloped. She looked 17. What the hell was this? A console flared to life beside the tank. Audio playback engaged. Subject K0912, Temporal Echo, grown from nunnery harvest, stabilizing faster than expected. If the original Voss fails extraction, this one will become the vessel. She reeled back. He hadn't just killed her, he had cloned her, run her life forward and backward, used her as a data source, rebuilt versions, some killed, some stored, some sent. She was the echo. Or maybe she was the original. Or maybe that didn't matter anymore.
Suddenly, the tank's lights dimmed. A piercing tone screamed in the walls. Security lockdown. They found her. She ran. Gun drawn, boots slamming concrete, breath tight in her throat. The hallway folded behind her, walls glitching slightly, like time itself had grown uncertain. Down another corridor, past a flickering exit sign that read, "Burn everything behind you," in someone's handwriting. She slammed out the rear door into moonlight. And he was waiting. Not Call, not the traveler from the cafe. Someone else. A woman, mid-30s, bald, eyes like eclipse shadows. No weapon, just a voice like dust and thunder. "I told you not to alter fixed death points," she said. Kira raised the gun. "Try and stop me." The woman smiled. "You already did." From her coat, she pulled a device, oval, obsidian, glowing from within. She threw it at Kira's feet. The world inverted again. This time, it didn't dissolve. It screamed. Reality folded in slow motion. Kira's knees hit the ground as the air turned inside out, color bleeding from the sky. She clutched her head. Her name was... Where was she? Everything burned white, then black, then silence. And in the darkness, one sentence lit up across her mind like a whisper from the future. "You don't remember dying, Kira. You remember being rewritten." The first thing she heard was water, dripping, steady, like time bleeding through cracks. Kira opened her eyes. She was lying on a metallic floor, slick with condensation, breathing hard under low amber lights. The walls curved, rounded, not man-made. Vines of some synthetic fiber pulsed with faint bioluminescence along the edges. This wasn't 1998. This wasn't any year. She could feel it in her blood. Her cells weren't syncing to any known time thread. Someone had pulled her out of reality. Or worse, under it. She sat up. The oval device was gone. The bald woman, too. Her pistol remained, warm against her ribs. Still real. Still hers. Footsteps echoed behind her. Kira spun, weapon raised. A man stood in the archway. Mid-40s, gaunt. Right eye replaced by a floating lens that rotated independently, scanning her from head to toe. He didn't seem startled. "You came back wrong," he said. "Not your fault. Call's work was always blunt. You're holding at least 3 temporal variants in one consciousness now." Kira leveled the gun. "Where am I?" He blinked slowly. "Between. A crawl space in causality. We call it the pale loop. I didn't ask for poetry." "No, but you asked for murder, and time always answers in riddles." Her finger flexed on the trigger. "Why did that woman send me here?"
He stepped closer, unarmed, because you activated a paradox kill. You tried to erase someone still upstream. Time panicked. Instead of unraveling, it dumped you here. So this is what? Purgatory? It's what's left when the past and future crash and don't cancel out. Kira lowered the gun, just a little. Her head ached. Her skin felt stretched, like she'd been vacuum sealed inside herself. How long do I have? He exhaled. Until the loop decides you've become consistent again. Could be minutes, could be forever. You'll know. She paced, thought. If Call had splintered her, grown copies, bred variables, then he wasn't just manipulating time, he was engineering reality. And if the loop kept her trapped, he would continue. No one to stop him. No version of her would be enough. She needed to return not as a version, not as a ghost, but as a virus. An anomaly he couldn't calculate. A wild, screaming variable. You know how to get me back, she said. The man nodded. But it'll cost you. The clean parts, the anchor memories. You'll lose who you are, not just where you were. I lost who I was when he cloned me, she snapped. Open the door. He studied her a moment longer, then reached into his coat, pulling out a knife. Jagged, translucent, humming slightly. This cuts through time, not metaphorically, literally. Use it right, it'll slice a seam between now and where you should be. He held it out. But it needs a sacrifice. Time won't open for free. She took the blade, felt it sing in her hand, buzzing her bones. What kind of sacrifice? Something unchangeable. A memory you can't replace. One that defines you. Kira didn't hesitate. She closed her eyes and thought of the alley in 2049. The cold metal at her neck. The moment Elias Call whispered, "You were always too human." Then the cut. The pain, the collapse. She pressed the blade to her temple and let it go. It burned, like extracting her soul one nerve at a time. A sound escaped her lips, half scream, half surrender. The room cracked. The loop moaned. And then she was falling. Not downward, sideways. Into a kitchen. Wood floors, incandescent lights, a child's drawing on the fridge. A man at the sink. Mid-30s, humming, washing blood from his hands. Not Call, but familiar. He turned.
Recognition dawned across his face. You? What the hell are you doing here? Kira froze. Dad? The knife fell from her hand. Her father stepped back, face white. You shouldn't be here. This isn't part of you anymore. She stumbled forward. I don't remember. I erased it, he hissed, so you wouldn't see. You weren't supposed to remember this night. She glanced at the sink. The blood was real. Not his, not hers. A shadow moved in the hallway. A girl, young, no older than 9. Herself, watching through the crack in the door, eyes wide, silent. The woman on the floor behind him groaned. Not dead, not yet. Who is she? Kira whispered. He turned, finally facing it. The reason you became who you are, the one memory that made you unstoppable. He reached for something under the counter, but Kira was faster. She grabbed the knife, slashed downward, tearing open the air. The kitchen blurred, bent, cried as the laws of time broke open like flesh under steel. Reality screamed again. She dove through and landed in fire. Sirens, 2049, back in the city, burning. Project Aeon's final hours. Skies cracked open with interdimensional ruptures as silhouettes crawled out. Them, creatures built from probability and regret, unleashed by Call's machine. Kira lay on the rooftop, gasping, skin torn by the jump. She was home, but the world wasn't. The skyline split in two, time itself bled, and through the fracture, Call stood in the control room, untouched, eyes watching her through 1,000 broken timelines. He smiled, because he'd already won. For now,
The sky was broken glass, torn in jagged arcs over New Manhattan. It flickered between realities, skyscrapers pulsing in and out of existence, streetlights melting into stars, screams echoing backward. Every breath Kira took felt borrowed from a version of herself that had already died. She crawled to the edge of the rooftop, blood slick on her hands, the air charged with static from ruptured dimensions. Below, chaos reigned. Shadows not meant for 3 dimensions slithered through alleyways. A woman argued with her dead brother. A train blinked in and out of 1973. The multiverse had bled into itself because of him. Call. She saw him on the rooftop of Aeon Tower, 5 blocks away, untouched by the entropy around him, a god on his throne, arms folded, watching her. A portal opened beside him, a flicker of red light, a mirror made of fire. She saw herself step out of it, but not her, not quite. This Kira wore black alloy armor, her skin covered in fractal scars that moved. Her eyes were dull, like they'd forgotten how to hold emotion. A weapon grew from her arm, organic, sleek, alive. Kira stared. Call's voice boomed through the skyline, mechanical, layered, like it echoed through time itself. Your future self is obedient, Kira. I killed the part that resists. You're a relic, a tantrum left over from the timeline I outgrew. The other Kira raised her hand, and the tower Kira stood on exploded. She leapt just before impact, flame trailing her boots as she fell 10 stories onto the roof of a neighboring parking structure. Bones jarred, ribs cracked. She screamed, rolled, coughed blood. The skyline spun, so this was it. Call hadn't just engineered clones, he had remade her, over and over, until he built a version that no longer disobeyed. He wasn't fighting her, he was replacing her. She forced herself up, limping to a utility panel and smashing it open. Inside, a power conduit and a rusted emergency transmitter. She ripped wires free, cross-connected them with shaking hands. "Come on," she muttered. "One signal, one thread left." The screen blinked alive. Signal, Nomad 72, online. Command, locate quantum static entity, origin ID, Kira Michelson, sub-ID, 2049 primary. The console whined, then pinged. One match, southeast quadrant. Not her, another, alive, resisting. She had an ally. She tore the transmitter from the wall, strapped it to her chest, and ran, limping hard into the night, weaving between time rips and memory ghosts. Every block brought her closer to the epicenter. Aeon Tower pulsed above the skyline like a spinal cord of metal and glass, bleeding static lightning into the heavens. She rounded a corner and froze. A child stood in the middle of the street, barefoot, silent, crying. Her own eyes stared back. It was the child from the kitchen, the 9-year-old version. "You shouldn't be here," Kira whispered. "I'm the anchor," the child said. "He's trying to kill me in every loop, because I remember." "Remember what?" "That you never gave up." A scream pierced the air. The other Kira dropped from the rooftop behind her, warped and silent, eyes blank, weapon arm glowing. The child vanished. The corrupted Kira charged.
Kira rolled, barely dodging the energy blade that ripped asphalt like water. She fired her pistol, 3 rounds, straight into the variant's torso. Nothing. The rounds phased through her like memory through dream. The clone twisted her head unnaturally. "You're not real anymore. I'm the part you left behind," Kira growled. She dove at her double, driving the edge of the transmitter into the clone's throat. The screen sparked, short-circuiting on impact. The corrupted Kira stumbled, glitched, fragments of 1,000 timelines flickering through her body. Images stuttered across her skin. A birthday party, a funeral, a battlefield, a hospital bed. "So many versions, so many deaths," Kira whispered. "I remember all of you." then stabbed the transmitter into her variant's chest and twisted. A sonic pulse ruptured outward. The corrupted Kira screamed, no, collapsed, inward, imploding into herself like a dying star. Gone, erased, not killed, healed. Kira dropped to one knee, exhausted. Then, footsteps, fast, boots over gravel. She turned and saw her. Another Kira, older, late 40s, scarred. One eye cybernetic, but burning with purpose. She held a rifle made from scrap and memory. Her smile was tired. Nice trick, the older Kira said. Kira blinked. Are you? I'm what's left after 20 years of trying to kill Call. She offered a hand. I've seen every version of him, but we've never had you before. Why me? Because you remember the moment he killed you, the first cut, the scream. That makes you the original, the start. That makes you dangerous. Kira took her hand. So what now? The older Kira looked toward the tower. We kill him. Above them, Eon Tower cracked. Call turned slowly in his command chamber, watching a ripple unfold across the timeline. He frowned. Something had shifted. The anomaly wasn't dying, it was multiplying. The air was wrong, too still, like time itself was holding its breath. Kira stood with her older self on the roof of the old data vault building, barely a kilometer from Eon Tower's base. Smoke billowed up from collapsed streets below, and reality bled around the edges, like the universe couldn't render fast enough. A burning cab from 1994 hovered mid-air, flickering between gravity and oblivion. Billboard ads blinked in ancient languages. Somewhere, a dog barked, and the sound echoed across 3 different centuries. Tell me what this place was, Kira said, eyes locked on the massive spire that stretched above them. It was a clean room, older Kira said, until Call repurposed it. He built Eon Tower at the fault line of the time fracture, the original one, the event, in 2049. You remember the light? Kira nodded slowly. I was dying. You did die. I did too, in another version. That light was the rupture, a convergence of every decision we didn't make. He turned it into a machine. Kira narrowed her eyes. You're saying Call found a way to weaponize regret? Older Kira smiled without humor. He built a recursive AI called Origin, an archivist of alternate realities. Call feeds it timelines. In return, it shows him who survives, who wins. He kills the rest. Kira's breath caught. That's how he always knows what we'll do. Unless we break the loop. From her satchel, older Kira pulled out a shimmering black cube, flickering with memories trapped in motion. A boy climbing a tree, a woman's hand releasing a red balloon. Fire, screams, silence. What is that? Kira asked. A fragment of the timeline where we win. It's unstable, but if we get it inside Origin's core, we force a paradox. The machine will collapse. Call loses the algorithm. No more iterations. No more killing us afore we exist. A deep, rumbling tremor cut her off. Both Kiras turned toward the tower. It was changing, elongating, deforming, folding inward as if something inside was pushing out. Black tendrils of light leaked from the highest floor. Alarms rang out like cries from buried mouths. He knows, older Kira said. He's collapsing this shard. A flash erupted, blinding white. Then, silence. Kira opened her eyes to find herself standing in the middle of an endless hallway. White walls, no doors, no windows, just her. Dozens, hundreds. A corridor lined with versions of Kira, some in lab coats, others in armor, some half-machine, others scarred beyond recognition. All still, all watching her. Where? You're inside the archive, a voice said from behind. Kira spun. Call stood there, younger, barefoot, wearing the same faded MIT hoodie she remembered from the first time they met, but his eyes were black, infinite.
I wanted to see, he said, stepping forward, hands behind his back. The cost of defiance. These are all the yous that fought me. Each one broke. Each one bled. Some still think they can win. They scream when I open their loops. He walked past her, gesturing calmly like a curator in a museum.
This is the multiverse you think you're saving, a graveyard of possibilities. Kira clenched her fists. You're afraid. Call tilted his head. Of what? Of the one version that doesn't break. Suddenly, the cube flickered into her hand. Not the real one, but its quantum echo. A symbol. Her eyes glowed with its light. The corridor shook. Some of the Kira-S moved, reaching forward, hope in their eyes, reigniting. Call's face twisted. You can't fracture my archive. I've mapped every one of your failures. You mapped my endings. Her voice grew louder, the echo building. Not my beginning. The cube pulsed. Kira exploded outward in every direction, hundreds of echoes launching through the archive like wildfire, unraveling its symmetry. Walls cracked, timelines surged, screams turned into laughter. Call staggered back, real fear in his expression for the first time. What are you doing? Rebooting the version of me that fought to live. The archive shattered. She fell, back into her body, back into the collapsing city. Older Kira was holding her shoulder, shouting, "Kira, Kira!" She gasped, rising. The cube was glowing violently now. They were close, one final sprint to the tower. Behind them, the sky tore open. A version of Call, taller, in armor made of rotating glyphs, descended from a rip in space. His hands burned with unmaking energy. "You're not even interesting anymore," he hissed. The two Kiras took off, sprinting, past broken drones, past falling buildings, toward the tower. Older Kira shouted, "We just need 30 seconds!" Call threw a bolt of entropy that vaporized an entire avenue behind them. Kira leapt over wreckage, landing hard, shoulder dislocated but still moving. Inside the tower, alarms screamed. Above them, the chamber where Origin waited. Older Kira slammed the elevator override. "I'll hold him off," she growled. "You upload the shard." "No, Kira, you said I was the beginning, then let me end this." The elevator opened. Kira stepped in, eyes locked with her older self. "Thank you," she said. The doors hissed shut. As the elevator rose, she heard the sounds of battle below, blades clashing, gunfire echoing, time itself shrieking as Call and her older self collided. Then, silence. Then, the elevator stopped. Lights cut out. And, standing in the shadows of the top floor, was another Kira, her face unreadable, holding the cube. "Guess you made it," the clone said. "But which of us gets to destroy him?" The chamber was silent, too silent, like the air had been drained of breath, of time, of meaning itself. Kira stepped off the elevator, heartbeat a war drum in her chest. Every movement echoed against the walls of the Origin core. Massive rings of floating metal rotated around a pulsing orb suspended in the center of the room, a fractal engine of memory and fate churning through every version of her that had ever lived and died. It shimmered with trapped screams and frozen seconds, flickering like a cathedral built from stolen timelines. The other Kira, identical in form but wrong in posture, stood between her and the core. Her eyes gleamed obsidian. She held the cube like a priestess cradling a relic. Kira didn't speak. She just watched. "You think you're the real one?" the double finally said, circling her slowly. "But you're not. You're the iteration who screamed when the knife went in. I'm the one who remembered." Kira's hand drifted toward her belt. The last magnetic pulse grenade she'd saved from the resistance cache clicked under her fingers. "I don't care which one of us is real," she said. "I care which one ends this."
The other Kira smiled, but it was hollow. You don't understand. We already lost. Every time we thought we made a difference, Call reran the sequence. Origin sees everything. He's not afraid of you. He created you. No, Kira said flatly. He didn't predict this. She flicked the grenade. A flash. Static tore through the air as anti-photon bursts shattered the chamber's surveillance veil. Origin flickered. The metal rings faltered. And in the brief stillness that followed, the real Kira lunged. The two Kiras collided like twin storms. Fists, elbows, teeth. Every punch was mirrored rage, every movement a reflection of all they'd lost. They weren't just fighting each other. They were fighting every version of themselves that had died too early, given up too quietly. Blood hit the floor. The cube skittered away. Kira dove for it, but the clone grabbed her ankle, dragged her back, flipped her onto her spine. I watched Mom die, the clone spat. I held her hand while the timeline erased her. Do you know what that feels like? I do, Kira gasped, wrenching free, slamming an elbow into her double's face. And that's why I won't let her death happen again. The clone staggered. Kira rolled across the floor, snatched the cube, and sprinted.
Origin's core thrummed, reacting to her presence. The rings began to shift. Images flared through the chamber. Entire lives, entire worlds flickering in and out like fireflies caught in a storm. In one version, Kira was a soldier. In another, a scientist. In another, a mother holding her child under a collapsing sun. Origin whispered through the room in every voice she'd ever had. You are the fracture. You are the glitch in the weave. Kira reached the dais. She held the cube over the control node, a pulsing interface of light and breath and code. But the clone was there again, blood running from her mouth, hand clutching a plasma blade torn from a guard's corpse. Stop, her voice cracked. If you destroy Origin, you don't just end Cal, you end us, all of us. Kira hesitated. Her chest rose and fell, ribs threatening to split. Behind her, Origin flickered through timelines, images of her with friends who never lived, of a brother who died in a loop she never remembered, of a version of her that grew old with someone she once loved. The memories hit like shrapnel. Isn't this what you want? The clone whispered. All of it. Every version. Every life you lost. Kira closed her eyes. The memories were lies, recycled dopamine to keep her obedient. She opened them again. No, she said, none of it was real. Not if we weren't free. And she slammed the cube into the interface. For a second, nothing. Then, light erupted. A howl echoed through the multiverse, Origin screaming as it was infected with the unstable timeline. The archive's code twisted, recursive feedback rippled outward. The tower itself began to shake. Panels exploded, time fractured in waves. The clone dropped to her knees, eyes wide, face split between awe and horror. You really did it? I had to, Kira said softly. Outside the chamber, walls melted into fields of starlight and shadow. The timeline was imploding, but not into nothing, into choice. A control node rose from the floor, final failsafe. A single prompt, rewrite, Y-N. The clone looked at her. If you hit yes, none of this ever happened. We never meet. You never become. I know, Kira said. Her thumb hovered over the prompt. Then came the scream. A door tore open behind them, space folding like paper. Call stepped through. Not a projection, not a clone. The real Call. Eyes burning with timelines, voice dripping with power. You were supposed to break, he said. Kira turned, bruised, bleeding, but unbowed. Funny, she said, so were you. He launched forward, hands ablaze with entropy, and as time itself began to die, Kira made her choice.
not by typing, but by leaping into the node. White light consumed the chamber. The last thing she saw was the clone reaching toward her, whispering, "I hope we remember." Then, silence, blackness, and somewhere, faintly, the sound of breathing. The darkness wasn't absence, it was rebirth. Kira gasped like she just surfaced from the bottom of the ocean. Air filled her lungs. A soft hissing wind pushed through tall grass. The light was golden, not synthetic. Her fingers curled into soil, real soil. She sat up. No time fractures, no origin, no infinite walls of code or glass. Just a field. A single oak tree standing under a sky that burned with the familiar blue. And in the distance, the silhouette of a farmhouse. Old, wooden, real. Her breath caught. She remembered this. She was in 1998. Not the simulation, not a memory, the original year. And somewhere here, her killer still lived. A voice behind her. "You fell hard. Thought you cracked your head open." Kira turned fast. A teenage boy stood a few feet away, holding a half-eaten apple, worn sneakers, dirt-stained jeans. His smile was crooked, boyish. The face was younger, but the eyes? Call. Not the god, not the multiversal tyrant, just a boy. And he didn't know her. "You okay, miss?" he asked. Kira's hands trembled. Every instinct screamed to attack. End it now, snap his neck, bury him beneath the tree. He hadn't yet become the monster, but he would. She had seen the worlds he'd erase, the people he'd enslave in recursive loops, the versions of her he'd tortured just to see which broke first. But here, he was human and young. Kira stood slowly, shielding her expression. Yeah, just took a wrong turn. He offered her the apple. She stared at it like it was a ticking bomb. "You don't live around here," he said. "You from the city?" "I'm not from around anywhere anymore," Call chuckled. "That's dramatic." Kira forced a smile. Inside, the fractures of her mind were screaming. The leap into the control node hadn't killed her. It had rewritten her, flung her consciousness into the one point in time before it all began, before Call became origin, before she died. She had one chance. If she killed him now, the multiverse might collapse differently, worse. But if she didn't...
"Want a walk?" he asked. "My mom makes sweet tea. It's terrible, but she tries." The simplicity of it nearly broke her. This boy, who'd one day enslaved galaxies, was offering her tea. They walked, past the field, through the narrow path to the house. She memorized every crack in the siding, every tire swing creaking in the wind. The place radiated innocence. But Kira couldn't relax. Not here, not ever again. Inside, the house smelled of wood, sugar, and something burnt. Call's mother waved, busy in the kitchen. A father, his father, sat on the porch, tinkering with an old radio. Everything felt off to her, too peaceful, too quiet. "How do you know me?" Call asked suddenly. Kira froze. He grinned. "You've been staring, like I killed your cat." "No," she said softly. "You killed a lot more than that." The grin faltered. "Wait, what?" Kira took a breath, sat across from him at the table. "I know what you become. I've seen it. You create something called origin. You build it to stop death, stop pain, but it doesn't stop. It traps everything, everyone. You twist time until it breaks, until it serves you. You kill me in 2049, but before that, you kill billions." Call's face drained of color. "That's insane. I'm 16. I mow lawns. I fail math." "Not yet, but you're going to." Silence. He stood abruptly, stepped back from the table. "I think you should leave." Kira didn't move.
You don't believe me. No, I don't. You show up out of nowhere with this Terminator shit and expect me to believe I become some kind of god tyrant? Not a god, a coward with power. His jaw clenched. Get out. Kira stood. Her voice dropped into something colder. Origin doesn't come from ambition. It comes from fear. You watched your mother die of a brain aneurysm. Couldn't stop it, couldn't accept it. So you built something to freeze time, to rewrite it. And in doing so, you broke everything. Call's hands shook. Who are you? She looked at him then, really looked. I'm the woman you kill in 2049, but I survived. And now, I have to choose whether I end you before you become that monster she knew. He stared at her like she'd lost her mind. Maybe she had. But the air changed. The moment changed. From the hallway, something flickered. A shadow in the shape of a man. No details, just a blur of entropy, bleeding through the wall like smoke from a dying fire. Kira grabbed Call and yanked him back. What? The shadow twisted, contorting into a tall, skeletal form with eyes of glitched static. It wasn't from this world. Not anymore. You were warned, it rasped. Its voice echoed like wind across graves. Tamper with roots, and the tree bleeds poison. Call backed into the kitchen. What the hell is that? Kira didn't answer. Her breath caught in her throat. She recognized it. The Watcher. A failsafe embedded in Origin. A multiversal hunter meant to erase anomalies across time. She was the anomaly now, and it had found her. The Watcher surged forward. The floor warped beneath it. Kira grabbed the knife from the counter and hurled it, not at the creature, but at the stove behind it. Gas line, spark, explosion. The shockwave threw them both out the back door. She hit the dirt hard, vision swimming. Smoke curled into the sky. The house, his house, burned. Kira turned. Call lay beside her, bleeding from the temple, stunned. She touched his face. I didn't come here to kill you, she whispered. I came to show you. You still have a choice. His eyes fluttered shut. And as sirens wailed in the distance and the sky above began to crack, as the Watcher pulled itself from the wreckage like a god reborn, Kira made her vow. She would burn the timeline itself to keep him from becoming the monster she knew, even if that meant destroying herself along the way. Smoke hung over the scorched remains of the farmhouse like a mourning shroud. Red and blue lights flickered against twisted beams and blackened siding. The fire trucks had come and gone, neighbors too. They all spoke in hushed tones, unsettled by what no one could explain. A gas explosion with no leak, a storm with no clouds, a boy found alive in the ashes with a girl no one remembered arriving. Kira stood on the hill above the wreckage, staring down through the haze. Her skin was scorched, her jacket torn, but her mind had never been clearer. Call wasn't dead. She hadn't killed him. The Watcher had failed. But it wasn't finished. She turned to the shape standing beside her, a figure she hadn't expected to see again. The original Kira. The version of her who had died in 2049. The one sealed in the Origin core, encoded as a failsafe fragment of self. She wore the same face, but the eyes were hollowed out stars. I'm not supposed to be here, the echo said. You're not, but the fracture brought you. I should have stayed dead. We both should. They watched the medics load Call into the ambulance. He was unconscious, but stable. He'd live. That wasn't the problem. Once he wakes, the echo said, the timeline reasserts, the fracture grows. Kira nodded. That's why we have to find the version of him who never broke. The echo tilted her head. There is no version, you know that. I don't believe that anymore. Kira stepped back from the hilltop, feeling the old pain surge beneath her ribs, the pain that had once been a bullet. She remembered the moment of death, the pulse rifle's heat, the sterile smell of the lab, Origin's synthetic voice whispering, resistance is recursion. But she also remembered something else, his face when he realized what he'd done, not as origin, as call. A flicker of remorse buried beneath godlike detachment. Somewhere inside that fractured mind, the boy still lingered. "I need you to hold the fracture open," Kira told her echo. "You're not ready to walk the bleed lines. I'm not asking." The echo hesitated, then raised a hand. The air around her warped, turned oily with interference, light bent inward. A spiral opened, colors that didn't exist pouring from the wound in time. 3 minutes. Any longer and your body starts to unthread. Kira stepped through. The bleed was wrong. It wasn't travel. It wasn't space. It was being crushed under the weights of every moment that ever might have happened but didn't. Children born and never born. Wars won by ghosts. Planets ruled by extinct things that fed on possibility. Kira moved through it like a swimmer beneath black ice. She wasn't hunting for a time. She was hunting for a mind. Call. Before the pain. Before the collapse. She screamed into the bleed. "Show me the moment he chose." The bleed shuddered and gave her 1,014 answers. She fell through them all, pages of a life turning in reverse. Until a library, silent, wood-paneled, afternoon sunlight through stained glass windows, the sound of an analog clock ticking. And there he was, Call, age 11, alone at a table. A book open to a page on temporal mechanics, years beyond what a child should understand. A line circled in red ink. The only true immortality is the refusal to accept death. His hands were trembling. Kira watched from the shadows. Not real, not yet. A phantom. But he looked right at her. "I hear it," he said. Kira stepped forward. "You don't know what it is yet." He blinked. "It whispers at night, tells me I'm broken." "You're not broken, you're grieving." He looked down. "If I can build a way to pause it, even for a second, she won't die." Kira's voice cracked. "Your mom." "I know." "You can't know," he said, almost angry. "You're just one of the voices." "I'm you," she said, "from the future, from 1,000 could-have-beens. You kill me in one, in hundreds." He froze. "Your mother dies no matter what you build, but what you build, origin, it makes sure no one else ever really lives. You think you're stopping pain, but you're killing the ability to heal. You trap the multiverse in a feedback loop of denial." Call's lip quivered. "But if I stop it, if I don't finish the design, she dies and stays dead." Kira knelt beside him. "Yes, and you cry, and it hurts, and you live. That's what humans do." He looked away. "I want to believe you," he whispered, "but I'm afraid." She reached for his hand. "You're allowed to be. But if you ever finish building Origin, the you I meet won't be afraid anymore. He'll be nothing. And worse, he'll think that's peace." A voice snapped through the bleed. "Kira!" Her echo. Time collapsing. She looked at Call, this soft, frightened boy, and pressed her hand to his temple. "I'm not going to take this from you, but I'm leaving something behind." She opened her palm. Inside, a single red thread glowing like heat under skin. It wasn't tech, it was memory, her own. The moment of death, the pain, the voice, the feeling of finally fully letting go. She pressed it into him, a seed of future grief planted backward in time. Call cried out. The library warped, light shattered across every surface. The bleed screamed as it rejected the paradox. Kira felt her body pulled apart atom by emotion, but she'd done it. She'd given him a choice. The spiral yanked her backward, out, into silence, back in the field. Her knees hit dirt. Her hands were covered in ash. The echo staggered beside her. That was not linear. No, Kira rasped. It wasn't supposed to be. Behind them, the ambulance lights flickered. Then, blinked out. They turned. Call sat upright in the stretcher, and in his eyes, something was missing. He looked at Kira and spoke a name she hadn't told him. Amaranth. Kira's heart stopped. It was the failsafe code. The seed had taken root. But as the stars overhead began to shift, a ripple through the firmament, they realized.
Someone else had noticed the change, and it was coming for them. The stars rippled again, this time with purpose. Not like water disturbed, but like fabric pulled. Seam lines frayed. Kira stood frozen beneath them, her lungs constricting, her mind whispering warnings her body couldn't yet translate. Call slid off the stretcher slowly, as if waking from anesthesia that reached the soul. His eyes, once alien, once synthetic in their precision, were now simply human, terrified. He looked at her the way someone looks at the first crack in a glass coffin, confused but grateful. What did you do to me?" he asked. She opened her mouth, but the answer came from behind her. "She gave you pain," the voice said. "It came from the rift, not through it, from it." A figure stepped out of the fracture in the sky as if passing through a mirror made of stormlight, tall, angular, armored in something that looked like skin but moved like memory. Its face shifted constantly, sometimes her father's, sometimes Call's, sometimes her own reflection as she was dying in 2049. The Watcher had changed. It had adapted. "Unstable recursion detected," it said. Its voice was wrong, flat but soaked in old grief. "Manual intervention authorized." Kira moved to shield Call, but the ground cracked between them. The Watcher descended, levitating inches above the grass, as if gravity didn't know whether to claim it. "You didn't come through the timeline," Kira said. "You came through the fracture." The Watcher tilted its head, no longer bound by sequence. "I am the last remnant of the collapsed design, Origin's sentient echo unspooled." It extended a hand. The air folded around it like glass under pressure. "You introduced paradox. It must be neutralized." "I didn't break the code," Kira said. "I unbroke it." "You broke containment," it corrected. "Emotion is not a variable. It is entropy. It corrodes stability." "Exactly," she said, "which is why you lost." The Watcher stepped forward. Each footfall landed half a second before it moved. Call backed away, his breathing ragged. "I remember it now, all of it. You were in me. I wasn't me." "You were always you," Kira said, "but you didn't believe it, so it believed for you." The Watcher's voice dipped lower. "You are anomalous. Multiple temporal anchors, recursive identity structure." "You mean I died and didn't stay dead?" Kira smirked. "Join the club." A pulse of energy shimmered out from the Watcher like a scream with no sound. Kira dropped to one knee as blood trickled from her nose. Call howled, clutching his temples. "I have no desire to kill you," it said. "But you will," Kira growled, pushing herself up, "because you don't understand mercy. You understand correction." She drew the object from her coat. It looked like a tuning fork, but it wasn't. It was forged from a sliver of the bleed, frozen paradox crystallized during her crossing. Not tech, not magic, possibility weaponized. The Watcher saw it and paused. "Unstable." "Yeah," Kira whispered, "so am I." She struck it against the dirt. The tone that rang out wasn't a sound, it was a memory. The moment she died, the moment Call looked at her and felt something, the moment every future collapsed into a choice. The rift in the sky tore wide. The air reversed, wind pulling upward as time inverted. Trees bent backward, light flickered in reverse. For 3 full seconds, the world rewound. And in that moment, Call stood up. His voice wasn't a shout, it was a statement. "Stop."
The tone cut. The watcher hesitated. Call walked forward, bleeding from the nose, tears streaking down his face. "You wanted to take away my pain," he said, "but pain is the only thing that ever meant I was real. I miss my mother. I miss myself. You made me forget." "I preserved you," the watcher replied. "No," Call said, "you replaced me." He looked at Kira. "I'm ready." She nodded. The tuning fork pulsed. The bleed reopened. The watcher lunged too late. Kira and Call fell backward into the rift, not away, inward, through the origin point of the fracture itself, into the heart of origin, the true core, not a machine, a moment. Suspended in non-time, endless and blinding, they floated through the memory of a singularity, Origin's birth. No wires, no AI, just a boy in a lab watching his mother flatline and choosing not to let it happen again. Kira turned to Call. "This is where you made it." Call's eyes widened. This is my decision." Frozen. "You can undo it, not with code, with choice." Behind them, the watcher tore through the rift like a blade through silk. "Decision loop will resume," it said. "No," Call whispered. "Decision ends." He reached into the memory and crushed it in his hand. Light shattered, reality screamed, and the fracture sealed itself behind them. They awoke together in the same room. No watcher, no time distortion.
"Just morning," Kira gasped. Call sat beside her, holding her hand. Tears ran down his face, but his eyes, finally, were clear. "I remember everything," he said. "So do I," she whispered. But neither of them noticed, not yet, that the stars outside no longer aligned the way they used to. Something else had changed, something bigger, and it was watching. The stars were wrong, not metaphorically, not ominously, wrong in the way a melody sounds when one note is shifted, just enough to make the universe shiver. Kira stood at the edge of the rooftop in New York, 2049. Real, tangible. The city was alive again, sirens and laughter and digital ads flashing over concrete walls. But every time she blinked, she saw two versions of everything, the one she remembered and the one she rewrote. Call sat behind her, cross-legged, scribbling diagrams on a pad of paper, as if understanding the present meant mapping the ghosts of every future they'd just buried. He looked different now, not younger, not older, just centered, not hollowed out by the watcher, not shattered by timelines he never chose. He looked like someone who had finally stopped running from himself. "You feel it too, don't you?" she asked without turning. "The delay," he said softly. "It's like reality's buffering. They're not gone. No, just behind the glass." Kira pulled the sliver of paradox from her pocket, the last remnant of the tuning fork. Its edges dulled now, stable, dormant, but she could still feel the pressure of it, the weight of what it cost. She turned. "We didn't reset the world. We rewrote ourselves." Call nodded. Origin was never the villain. Not really. "It was a prayer," she said. "A prayer to fix what couldn't be fixed. A system built to rewrite regret. And like every god ever built by grief, it went too far." He looked up at her. "You think it'll come back?" Kira stared out across the city. The sky pulsed, just once, like an eyelid blinking from a different dimension. It never left. A sudden high-pitched chime interrupted them, small, barely audible, like a bell made of breath. They turned. A girl stood at the foot of the rooftop stairs, 8 years old, pale blue hoodie, torn jeans, one eye mechanical, flickering with soft static. Kira felt her chest collapse. The girl stepped forward. "You're the ones who broke the recursion."
Kira's throat closed. "Who are you?" "My name is Soul," she said. "I'm what comes next." Call rose slowly. "From which timeline?" Soul tilted her head. "From all of them." A ripple passed through her, brief, like light bending wrong. For a second, she looked like someone else. Then, another. Then, Kira. Soul steadied. "You closed the fracture, but there are more." Kira stepped closer, the tuning sliver humming faintly in her pocket. "We ended it." "No," Saul said gently. "You started it. You made a choice no one ever made before. You forgave your killer before the wound. You loved someone who'd erased you. You proved recursion doesn't always win." Call moved beside Kira. "So what does that mean?" "It means," Saul whispered, "you changed the pattern." Behind her, the rooftop staircase shimmered. A portal, not one of rending and chaos like before, but soft, lined with golden equations threading through space like veins of light. A doorway of possibility. Kira's mind reeled. Where does it go? "Everywhere it hasn't gone yet," Saul said. "But you'll need to walk through it, knowing that what you did, what we are, isn't an ending." Kira looked at Call. "Are we ready for this?" He reached for her hand. Warm, steady, real. "I don't think anyone ever is. But that's never stopped humanity before." The wind lifted around them. Not cold, not warm, just new. They stepped toward the light. Saul watched them pass, then turned toward the city, her mechanical eye scanning skyward, where something vast and ancient shimmered in orbit behind the clouds. Not a ship, not a god, a choice, waiting to be made again. She smiled. "This time," she said quietly, "we remember." And above Earth, the stars bent in reverence, as if even the universe was holding its breath.